Well, hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for coming. We're very grateful that you're here. Looks as though you've got some fabulous background. Uh,
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're hoping that you are going to be able to solve some of our problems. I have a real quick question. You were laid off from ConocoPhillips back in May.
Yes, ma'am.
I assume that you have been looking for a job in the oil and gas industry.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
And so that would explain why you're not hired, because the industry is so depressed. But have you also tried to get into any other industries that might be related?
Petrochem, like this position is a chemicals job, and so recently I've been exploring the petrochem industry because there are opportunities, and it's very closely related to the work I've done, and it interests me very greatly. So I felt that would be a good idea.
Do you have, and you may not have this information, but do you have any idea why nobody has picked you up yet?
Yes, I think my interview skills could be a lot better. I've had some interviews, and it is very competitive. It's brutally competitive, but there's always chances to improve on the interview. And I did some homework and some studying, and I felt that my interview skills could be a lot better. So I have some resources that I leveraged, and I went out and I studied, and so hopefully this time will be a success.
All right. Well, that remains to be seen, but
Okay, sure.
We'll think optimistically.
Sure.
All right. So tell me about, now have you worked in, I'm so sorry, I haven't had time to look completely through your resume. Have you worked in the petrochemical industry before?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And what is one skill that you have that you feel is going to be the most useful, the most essential to being able to do this job well?
I think it's going to be a combination of my own brain power and my ability to work with others to move projects forward and drive solutions constructively and safely.
Okay, your intellect and your ability to work with others.
Right, correct.
All right. Chad?
Yes, I was just thinking about the job position here and listening to what Kathy was saying about your recent history, and obviously the oil and gas industry has been down, but what is it that you find interesting about our industry and our company specifically? Why would you want to be here as opposed to somewhere else?
The diversification and the numbers of business units that Occidental Petroleum, OxyChem has. They're at the parent companies in oil and gas and petrochem.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a very diverse business portfolio for an individual like myself to have one employer and make contributions to many different business groups while staying interested in learning new technologies for the remainder of my career. Mm-hmm. So I think that's even better than ConocoPhillips.
Right. Okay. So now, of the different product lines that we have, is there any product line? I know you had mentioned liking the diversity of our portfolio, but is there a particular product that you're interested in starting in? What do you have more interest in?
I think mainly the role that's of the chief engineer role. Mm-hmm. It's a role of significant responsibility. It's a great opportunity for me to move forward with my career with this increased responsibility. Mm-hmm. And basically, in a nutshell, prove to the business unit, the plant, and the organization that I could actually handle more responsibility than what was given to me.
So there's not a particular line that you're more interested in? Okay.
No, sir.
Now, as far as, there's going to be different people that you'll need to mentor as the chief engineer role. So tell me about a time where you had a difficult time transferring technical expertise to somebody that you were mentoring, and how did that go?
Well, the way it was initially set up, that person would come to my office on an intermittent basis with tasks that they're involved in the duration of the project's capital development projects they had out of Lost Cabin. So it started off, I think, to flow. The workflow was pretty consistent, where he would do some things and then come and get my input, and then go back and do some more things, and I would give him some more input, until a point where we had a difference of opinion on a material selection, and it got a little, the workflow wasn't as smooth. It did get worked out. We worked it out.
How did you work it out?
One of the things, I got the supervisor involved. I tried to resolve it with the other engineer, but unfortunately I had to get the supervisor involved because it was at a standstill. And so the three of us discussed it. He was still a little, I guess use the word, bent out of shape after the supervisor went and said, okay, no, we need to go with CPVC. This is the right selection. And at that time, he felt like the supervisor was taking Kevin's side, and I wanted him to come by my office once a week and have tea. And I explained to him, I wasn't a tea drinker. The Gerard and the Sea Crew, they got me drinking tea. I just listened to what they had to say, and it's not bad. Why don't you come by and have tea, regardless of what we're working on? Just take a break. It's a 12-hour day. Stop by my office. We'll have some tea, and then whether you need to or not, it's just a good break in the day. And I think that kind of showed him that I wasn't really, the boss wasn't against him and for me. It was just, we're trying to work something out, and we want to work together genuinely on a daily basis. And so after the material was installed and everything worked fine, he said, I'm sorry about that. I said, no, don't worry about it. Come by again. It's 4 o'clock's tea time. So that really, I think, just being able to do something non-work related that was a break in the day showed him that I really wanted to work with him, and this little hiccup was really very trivial.
I noticed that your PE license has expired.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have plans to reinstate that?
At some point, once I get back to work, I think it's probably a good idea, and to get one here in the state of Texas.
And I'm sorry, this is a stupid question, so you have to help me with this. You said that you worked with CPVC?
Right.
In that last answer?
Right, that's correct.
Is that the same as PVC pipe? Is that a special kind?
So it's chlorinated polyvinyl chloride.
Okay.
It's
that the
PVC,
same?
but it's been chlorinated. So it's called
okay.
CPVC.
Okay.
So PVC is polyvinyl chloride.
Okay.
It's produced at the plant. And at Lost Cabin, we decided to use CPVC, which is chlorinated polyvinyl chloride, for an application involving sulfuric acid.
Okay. All right. And now, have you? I see that you've worked a lot with the gas and the gasification plants and that sort of thing, that kind of processing. Have you worked in manufacturing?
Yes.
And when was? Am I missing it? When was that?
I was at Ford's. I was in their climate control lab at Ford Motor Company.
Is that on here?
Well, I only went back 15 years to 2001, and what I did was
You've got your earlier stuff.
I dumped that down to LinkedIn.
Oh, Ford Climate Control.
Right.
Okay.
And so what I did is I dumped that down to LinkedIn, so I wasn't shoveling a 7 to 8 page resume.
No.
So
that's fine. I just
I felt like
that.
LinkedIn could be complimentary to my resume rather than.
Right. No, that's fine. So, what were you manufacturing, and you were, what was your responsibility in that manufacturing environment?
Okay, I was a lab engineer. It was my first job out of the first school I went to, and my role was to get front-end cooling modules set up for tests, log test data, generate reports, set up test fixtures, everything that would be under the role of a laboratory engineer. So sometimes I'd travel out to the plant and look at the line and see the buildup of heat exchangers, the front-end cooling module being the radiator, the condenser, the cooling fan, the engine fan, the water pump, the transmission oil cooler, everything that would be part of that cooling package, otherwise known as the front-end cooling module. And so I did that,
And the company that you, the Ford Motor thing, they manufactured all of those
Right.
components, that whole piece? The
Climate
front end?
Control is a supplier to
Okay.
not just Ford, to other companies as
I
well.
see, okay. And did you essentially have that same lab position for the 4 years that you were there?
Sure.
Something like that?
And it wasn't just front-end cooling modules, it was compressor, it was refrigerants, it was control head.
Right.
Everything associated with what is known as a climate control system, HVAC.
Okay. And you said that was after your first school, so that
Sure.
was Purdue? You came out of Purdue and
Right,
went to
sure.
work for Ford? And then you got your 2 master's degrees a little bit later. All right, so that's your only manufacturing experience?
Right, well, I
Everything
worked at
else is
General
that-
Motors, but it was more of a research application.
Okay, all right, thank you. Chad?
Yes. So one of the things that we're looking for is proficiency in process engineering principles and methods. So what type of process engineering methods do you normally employ in your work?
I would say, in a nutshell, very rigorous documentation.
Okay.
What that would involve is, number one, taking good notes. 2, extensive use of spreadsheets, software models when applicable. And then also, an integral point is interfacing with maintenance. Very good working relationship with the maintenance superintendent and his guys, because anything and everything I do needs to go through his department. So I take my notes, spreadsheets, whatever, before I submit an MOC. It gets reviewed by another set of eyes,
Okay.
just to make sure it's going to work. I haven't forgot nothing. It's safe. No one's going to get hurt. It's going to be cost effective, and very likely, almost every time, whatever I produce, there's going to be some subtle changes to it, because maybe forgot something, or someone has a better way of doing something. But in the end, that's how I do it.
So you talked about software models. Which type of modeling software are you familiar
I've used
with?
ISIS, Aspen. I also have homemade spreadsheets
Okay.
that I've used for heat exchanger fouling. Homemade spreadsheets for some reactions involving dissolved solids out at the loss cabin. But those were strictly homemade spreadsheets that were based off data coming down from the Delta V that really couldn't make use of ISIS or Aspen. And we wanted to understand what was happening at the plant and head off shutdowns. So we had to do some calculations that were inherently unique to that area of the plant. So it was just homemade, for lack of a better term.
So there are a bunch of contractors that are involved in this role that you'd be interfacing with. Now, let's say, to kind of talk through a hypothetical situation. Let's say there is a contractor where he's working with some of the chemicals, and while he was kind of removing his gloves, there was just some residue on his hands, and he ends up just wiping his eye or whatever, and then there's nothing that comes of it. He doesn't get really injured or anything, but there was, some exposure, and you find out about this kind of through the grapevine, like just from other people mentioning it. Like, how do you handle that situation, and what do you do in that situation?
Well, number one, work with the HSC department, HSC being Health, Safety, Environment. Maybe fill out an OTZ card or a safety card. At ConocoPhillips, they had these 1 Target 0 cards that were an opportunity for any employee in the company to not just shut down a job. Anybody has a stop work authority, but also document a methodology or process that can be improved upon and made better, so that we all could go home at the end of the day the same way we arrived to work. So first off, work with the HSC department. Secondly, brainstorm what can be done so that doesn't happen again. And I've had experiences specifically in this.
Okay. Can you tell me